And welcome everyone to April 16th, 2024, Littleton Conservation Commission via Zoom, our meeting. What I'd like to do is approve the minutes from April 2nd. And everyone's here tonight with the exception of Chase. Does anyone have any edits or amendments? Anything to those minutes from April 2nd, 2024? Okay. If not, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion that the commission approve the meeting minutes of April 2nd, 2024 as printed.
Super. Thank you, Andrew. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Carl. Okay. Who would like to do roll call for tonight's meeting?
I'd be happy to do roll call.
Great answer.
Perfect. All right, Carl.
Carl Melberg,
Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
Myself, aye. It is unanimous.
Excellent. Thank you. Administrative discussions. A few things I'd like to add, and then if anybody else has anything they'd like to add. One is for Spectacle Pond Road, a potential site walk ahead of the May 14th meeting. We'll discuss that. SVT's new miracle job of putting all the lots together. They're meeting May 20th in the library. We'll talk about that. And then lastly, conservation restrictions. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add to administrative discussions?
Sarah, could we add a very brief thing on the Frog Pond site walk from last Wednesday?
Yep. Okay.
If we have time, can we get an update on the orchard?
Good. Okay, let's go ahead. So our 745 has been withdrawn. So we have until 8 o'clock to plow through some of these administrative discussions. So land use requests, Littleton Historical Society at Hartwell on May 18th for the Freedom's Way Hidden Treasures program. And Amy had attached that to our folders. Amy, do you want to?
Carolyn is here, so she can give you a brief rundown.
Excellent. Okay, Carolyn, all yours.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I guess you got the memo. We'd like to participate again in the Freedom's Way Hidden Treasures program. Freedom's Way is the National Heritage Association. They are out of Devons, Mass. They're a group that we've worked with for many years. They've been doing this since 2015. We've done programs on many of the other conservation parcels. We did Yap, we've done Oak Hill, then of course the pandemic came and we took a few years off. Last year we had a 100th birthday party for the Shattuck Street building. So this year what we wanted to do is at the Hartwell Family Memorial Preserve is kind of a scaled down version. We used to do these, enormous projects, and there was, meetings and meetings, and we thought, well, let's just do something simple. So we want to team up again with the Conservation Trust, and they're on board. We're going to be talking with them next week. But I think what we'd like to do is the Historical Society, we would stick to the parking lot, and we're going to have some displays on the Hartwell ski area. We have some really cool photographs and kind of a little bit of history of that. And then maybe the Hartwell Farm, which is next to the park there. So have some history on that beautiful farmhouse. And then LCT is talking about having maybe a walk, have a, I guess it's good birding time of this time of year. So have a nature walk. Dustin Neild would probably head that up. They're thinking of either doing 1 or 2 walks, but everything would stick to the pathways. And of course, it depends on how wet it is too. I have to say I have never been down the path before, so I'm not sure what it would look like this time of year, especially with the weather. But anything we would do would either be situated in the parking lot or along the trails.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's a short, we're thinking like 10 to 12. Again, it's not going to be an all-day event, but we'd want to get there a little early to set up, and then we'll just take some time to pull things down as well.
Thank you for that. And I also want to commend whoever wrote the land use permit. That was articulated well in the document. Anyone have any questions?
Sounds great.
Okie dokie. Would someone like to make a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion that the commission approve the Historical Society's land use request for the Hartwell property for the May 18th Freedom's Way Hidden Treasures program.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call vote. Carl?
Tom Alberg, aye.
Kyle? Oh, Kyle, I think you're on mute.
Kyle Maxwell, aye. Thanks.
Michael?
Michael Livingston, aye.
Ed?
Ed Foltz, aye.
Sarah?
Sarah Seward, aye.
Myself, aye. It's unanimous. Carolyn, I almost called on you.
You usually do, yes. Great, I really appreciate it, and we'll send you the publicity once we get it, so hopefully we see you at some point on that Saturday.
That's great. Thank you for coming in, and good
Okay. Yes, I will probably duck out now, but I promise I'll watch your meeting later.
luck. Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night, Carolyn.
Night.
Okay, next land use requests, Parks and Rec to install seasonal fishing pier near the town beach.
Why don't we just table that until Tim is here for the other two Parks and Rec things?
Okay, let's jump to request for a certificate of compliance, 6 Queen Road, Mass DEB 204-0496, map U15/154/0.
This is an old one. They're selling the house and just trying to clean up the title. Tim did a site walk, and it all looks good. The original filing was for a septic system.
Okay, would someone like to move to issue this?
I move that we issue the certificate of compliance for 6 Queen Road, Mass EP 204-0496.
Okay, I second.
Roll call vote. Ed?
Ed Foltz, aye.
Michael?
Michael Livingston, aye.
Carl?
Tom Alberg, aye.
Kyle?
Kyle Maxwell, aye.
Sarah?
Sarah Seward, aye.
Myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you. Okay, invasive species disposal discussion. It's a lot of these.
You're moving faster than I thought you would. So that is for a little less urgent than initially. I put it on there just in case. So what really spurred that was the cleanup that they want to do at Frog Pond that we can discuss later, maybe when Tim is still here. Looking for a way to dispose of what we're all assuming is going to be a fair amount of invasive shrubs cut out from the Frog Pond area. But Tim from Parks and Rec said that he will be able to handle it probably through burning it, which is the best way to do it. But Sarah and I did stop off at the Orchard area earlier this afternoon to look at some potential sites where in the future invasive species might be able to be put into brush piles and just, left to dry out and then subsequently chipped out or something like that. And if you give me a second, let me see if I can.
And the areas of question are not the APR land. It would be land that's under the care, custody, and control of the Conservation Commission. As you go down Nagog Hill Road, you have the lower barn, then you've got the cottage, and then you have the area there nearest to the reservoir, or potentially across the street as well, over by Sarah Doublet parking lot.
So can you see these?
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, so this top one would actually be under the care and custody of the select board right now. But it's a mowed field, basically. And then this area down here is the property that's being transferred to the Conservation Commission that we can also talk about, Carl. And the last one is just south of the Sarah Doublet parking lot. So of course, I don't think I did these in order. That's the top one, the yellow one, just open field, very kind of high and dry. The parking lot below Sarah Doublet, there's a area right in there that would be very easy to use. And And then it's hard to see. There is a brush pile already on that land that's going to be transferred to the Conservation Commission with access right up in here. So for all those cases, we'd mow them, scalp them as much as we can, and then create an area where the brush can be piled, most likely on plastic and or pallets, and then either left in place or ultimately burned, probably after the winter. And I'm just talking woody material here.
So it sounds like we're just having this discussion. We don't need it right away, but these are potential areas that we could look at for future. Correct?
Yeah, and I just mostly wanted to see if there's any yays, nays, better ideas. It's an extremely difficult thing to struggle with. Most of the time, we do the stockpiling where we pull them. And that's the best thing to do is, you just don't move them around town, leave them where they are. Unfortunately, over at Long Lake and the Frog Pond, there's no room to do that.
So we're talking about shipping them from there over to here.
Yes.
That won't cause that to get a foothold over here.
Well, that's why we would, basically scalp it, mow it down as much as we can, put it on plastic in the pallets while it dries. All these areas are already mowed anyway and surrounded by invasives. So no, it is not my first choice to dump them someplace else. But we're in difficulty here. We did look into, and been looking into it for a couple of years now, doing dumpsters, which the town of Concord does supply. And admittedly, I'm betting that people are putting in the dumpster, and this is for the public, people are putting in the dumpster more than just invasives, but they're spending about $3,000 a year to provide that service, which I don't think we're ready to do, but that was the other thing we were looking at.
Do we have a sense for comparing apples to apples about if Concord's spending 3,000, are they putting as much volume or less volume or half volume? Do we have any idea?
They're using, I forget what size of roll-ons. They got the big roll-ons,
Right.
and they get taken down to the incinerator, and that's how it's handled. So you need a special permit for that. You need to rent the dumpster, and then you need to pay the hauling fee. And there is a bit of a premium for the invasive species piece of it, I think, just because they can. And they are emptying them about once a month. And I've been over there, I don't know, at least 3 years ago. And, frankly, it is a bit of a mess. They can't watch it. The public has at it. And you got to reach up to get it into the dumpster. So a lot of times it ends up in front of the dumpster. And then other things get into it. I think if we were ever going to do it, at least initially, we'd either want to lock it down and just make it something that the conservation or the trust uses. Because if it's open to the public, it's not going to be watched.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Is there a reason why we couldn't have a burn barrel there when they're pulling the invasives and just burn it as we go?
I'm going to stop sharing here so I can see if anybody's got their hand raised. That's basically what Tim's going to do. And not really, he's kind of something bigger. It's going to be, I think, depending on how many people they get out there, it could be a lot of material. But, burn permits are good through April 30th. So he thinks he can find a place to put them. And I don't know if he's planning on burning right away or stockpiling for a little bit to let them dry out and then burning before the 30th. And Highway had said that if we do need to move them, for instance, over to the Orchard area, that, they can move the stuff for us. They just can't take it to the transfer station. They don't have room.
Yeah, I guess if anybody else thinks of any other land that's under our care that
Yeah, please.
we could,
So where does it go after it's moved to the orchard?
It would either just be left there. It would dry for a while
Yeah.
and just be a brush pile there. Or after it's dried, probably over, past the winter, it could be burned. And we've had burns out there before, just for the local brush out there, or chipped out.
I mean, this is something we're going to be actively pursuing over the few years here, right? I get that it dries up and decomposes and will break down, but I mean, what you're saying is they're going at Frog Pond, at least very, very hard. And I think that sounds like a push by everybody. I get a little nervous that would overwhelm one of these spots that you're looking
No,
at.
I agree, and that has been the issue, and you know, frankly, some of this Frog Pond stuff came up, you know, kind of late in the game, which is why we're kind of panicking, trying to figure out what to do with the invasive species.
And I mean, would there be any way to work with the fire department? I know you private burn permits are good through April, but would they be willing to supervise an annual burn that's happens in the fall or something, or later in the year after April 30th?
They might. I have asked various fire chiefs if they would ever let us do a dumpster burn. They said no. Actually, I think when I first asked 4 or 5 years ago, I was like, yeah, you know, maybe. It's like, yeah, they're not doing that. And frankly,
there-
also when Brown's Woods, the house there was potentially going to be a burn. I was like, well, can we just put the brush in there? And that never happened.
It's
But
interesting.
as an example, that was a nice cellar hole that would have been great to dump stuff in.
Right. And it's interesting that, like, with all these empty buildings, that all we really need is a parking lot. Would be the asphalt to dry it out would be, you know, awesome. If we could ever think of one that's going to be laid for that amount of time, to see if we could do it.
Jim Duggan, we went in circles a bit on this, and he was going to talk to the folks over at 550 Keene with that huge.
Let's go put it at IBM.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he did, and you know, it's always the same old thing. Who wants invasive species brought onto their property?
Right.
I get it.
Well, there's wetland close by there too, isn't there?
It's tucked
That's a
way back
big
in the
parking-
corner. Yeah.
And I think it on a parking lot in particular, you'd have to make sure that if this time of year, it's not so much an issue because there's not seed coming off of
Right.
this material. But if there is, and it's in a parking lot, it's going to just run. So it would have to be have erosion controls or something around it.
Well, for sure.
And just to ask, the April 30th limit it's the season's now too dry to burn stuff after April 30th. Is that what the cutoff is?
I assume that's their reasoning.
I think it's also based on foliage, Michael, I think. Okay.
The one thing I would be concerned is making it look like a dump. You know,
Right.
I mean, it's conservation land. It's supposed to be, you know, nice. Like
Yeah.
granted, it's near that ratty building and stuff, but
Well, we've certainly had these piles on other conservation lands, usually with a sign saying, you know, what they are. And the ones on Cloverdale have been burned. The ones on Brown's Woods have been chipped out. The light department's been great about doing that for us. It kind of depends on the species and, you know, who wants to sit and watch a fire versus
yeah.
can we drag it out to the road so the light department can just take it.
Right. All right. So I think let's carry that discussion on again for the next meeting, because I think we're going to have to start to make some decisions. Next is the tree protection policy discussion.
Chase isn't here, so I'm still kind of waiting on feedback from him.
Okay. Lakeshore compliance dock policy.
So I don't know if you all had a chance to look at that. Again, this is what was based on what Stowe and I can't remember the other town had done. Essentially, and this is just for docks, not beach or retaining walls or anything like that. Basically saying that if the owner comes in and wants to put an extension on their house or something, but they have a dock, that they need to get the dock in compliance also. And it is written, I think, that they don't need to do that until they come back for the certificate of compliance for whatever they are in. Especially because Chapter 91 permitting can take a while. Not necessarily difficult, but slow. So the reason I was looking at this policy is just to make it clear to people what they may or may not need to do and encourage them possibly with a date for no bylaw filing fee for whatever period of, a grace period we would want to give them. And I will say that, our filing fee is maybe $50, which is not much compared to what also DEPs and the newspaper ad would add up to, but it's something.
So the filing fee is $50, but then is there additional fees as well in terms of newspaper, or is the newspaper in the 50?
No, newspaper's additional. And that's gonna be $200 or $300 unless they can combine them.
And then your third fee was the DEP fee?
Right, the DE portion of the Wetland Protection Act fee.
Ballpark, how much that might be?
They do it by linear foots and I forget what it is.
Okay.
I'm gonna say maybe 100, somewhere in there.
Hmm.
And
really-
a butter notification, which won't add up too much with most of these, I don't think.
Right. It would really behoove some of the lake organizations to do them in unison for sure. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on this document?
Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say is that if it's worth considering that the dock had to have been there for a certain amount of times. In other words, they can't build the dock this year. I guess I don't know, it makes too much difference, you know, that it had to have been in place since for at least a year, I would guess. If they want this sort of easier way of getting a permit for it.
So we should discuss and come to concrete of what that date is.
Yeah, this was gonna prove it one way or the other. I mean, if they say that it was, and we don't have evidence that it wasn't, and you know, are we saying that they've got to show us pictures, dated pictures or something? That could get a little contentious, it seems.
That's a good point, Ed. How would we know exactly when the dock was put in? It could have been the week before or 10 years before, right? Well, I mean,
Right.
10 years.
If we pick, for example, 2021, we have our photographs from 2021 and we should be able to see the docks.
I mean,
Is this for permanent ones?
Mass GIS has all the photos. You can just go back.
So can we come up with a date? Like just, let's start with a year. What year do we want to start?
And all it means is if someone's dock is newer than that, pretty much they just wouldn't have the fee waived.
Huh.
That's really the only difference. So it might not be worth making that difference.
If you're looking for a year, I'd say 2022, 2 years.
Would we have that GIS data though if we went that recently? Like, is 2021 the most recent?
2021 is the most recent. I believe we are going to be getting more recent ones, but I'm not 100% sure. Near map, I think it's called, which are stunning, and they're flown every 6 months.
I thought 2021 was the oldest, not the newest, sorry.
No, we go back to the 40s. 2021 is the most recent.
All right.
Carl, you had mentioned 21. Do you think that's the safer bet to go with 21?
I would think so.
Are we all in agreement of 21 then?
Sure.
Sounds good.
So 1/1/21, call it January 1st or whatever.
Kyle, you good? Okay. All right, excellent. Okay.
And how long would you want the, if we do it, the fees to be waived?
We're coming up on the summer, so May, June, July. If you did 3 months or even 6 months and said you got 6 months.
They won't have time.
I'm
No,
saying,
I
they won't
think
have
we're
time?
thinking years. I'm thinking to come
oh,
to bring people into compliance. I think we're talking 24 and 25.
oh, shows my lack of knowledge, sorry.
Yeah, I just don't think we'd even get the word out before the middle of the summer.
Michael, when he was reviewing this, had put in, 2 years after this is adopted. I had thrown in, December 31st, 2024, which basically gives him this whole season, or 2025. And the point is to get people into compliance.
Michael, what are your thoughts?
I was thinking that, 2 years would be fair. It might be difficult to get everybody to come into compliance in one season. It might be difficult to handle getting everybody into compliance in one season. But 2 it seems reasonable to me. I mean, it's completely subjective, but it seems more doable.
So can I ask a kind of a naive question? If we hypothetically are waiving, say, 100 docks, where is this money coming from?
What money?
So DEP fees, newspaper fees.
That's coming from the applicant.
So what fee are we actually waiving?
Only the bylaw fee and the town's part of the Wetlands Protection Act fee.
Okay.
The newspaper, they would still have to pay, and the DEP part, they would still have to pay.
So approximately how much is the average dock owner gonna save by coming into compliance? $100?
But yeah,
Okay.
It depends on if, like you said, if you can get 70 of them around one lake to go in all this together, then you're looking at one newspaper ad. And
Right. Okay.
I'm gonna have to think about, yeah, I guess we could do one newspaper ad. We did that for the mats, for the
Yeah,
bench mats.
that's why I said, yeah, because we did
Yeah.
the same thing.
And
with
that in that ad, you just list everyone, all those addresses.
So it
Okay.
becomes a more expensive ad, but that's fine.
It's right, but divided among however many. It's definitely
Okay,
more
we've only
economical.
got 4 more minutes. Let's jump along. For Spec Pond.
Wait, so no fee for 2 years after adoption?
Yep.
And did you want to vote on this or kick it down the road?
Are we good to vote tonight?
Is there any reason to keep kicking this down the road? And we figured out a date and a filing fee and whatever. Is there anything else that we need to discuss about it?
All right. Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the Lakeshore Compliance Dock Policy with the 2-year compliance period.
Do we have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote. Ed,
Ed Foltz, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Sarah,
Seward, aye.
myself, I. It is unanimous.
Okay, great. Let's go. Let's try and get 2 more of these done. For Spec Pond Road sidewalk.
So, if anybody remembers this site, this is, basically the rear of Stoneyard, up on the Airtown line, but on the right side, below 6 Spec Pond, which Mickey Jensen was in last year or 2. But they have filed and it's on the agenda for, the May meeting. I am guessing you all are really going to want a site walk. And I was kind of thinking it might be good to do it before the first meeting in case we can beat the vegetation just blocking everything out. So I don't know if you were interested in doing that or not. There's a lot of wetlands and a riverfront area. And I'm trying to find out if they need to file with the planning board, who would review their stormwater stuff.
So this isn't the same site that we've already approved.
It's just down here from that,
It's the back behind that.
little deeper in, yeah.
So as you go down that dirt road, Kyle Stoneyard's on your left.
Yep.
It's further down on the right, and it's got a big berm around it. There's no structures there presently.
But it's a big operational, I mean, you can't miss it if you go in, but don't go past it, which is what I did.
Right.
I thought I could turn around. You don't want to do that.
Mhm.
But if anyone's interested, I was thinking of shooting for the week of May 6th. Or we can just do it normally after the first meeting.
I would say throw out a date in May. So we've got town meeting on the 7th. Do you want to try and do site walk the 8th or the 9th?
Either works for me.
What's better for people now? Noon still good for anyone? 5 o'clock?
Noon is best for me.
Noon is best for me, I think, as well, right now. What other activities going on?
And what's better, Wednesdays or Thursdays?
Either one.
Yeah, we got a preference, certainly.
All right, why don't I check with the consultant and see? if they're
Okay.
game.
I think we'll end up on this site, we'll end up doing 2 site walks. So then one that's going to be after work to accommodate everybody else. I
Yeah,
think
and maybe after the
one
first
that the
meeting.
commissioners need to see. So let's set the first one for May 8th at noon, and then perhaps talk to the consultant and see if we can do an evening type one for everybody else.
Yeah, and maybe the second one could be after the first meeting, so you've seen the
Okay.
plans a little bit more.
Okay,
All right, I'll see what they're, well, I can still see the wetland flags.
okay. Then quickly, SVT on May 20th in the library.
Yes, so, and Andrew, I haven't even talked to you about this yet. I don't know if you could even make May 20th. It's like the only date that's open in the library right now. But this would for them to come in and talk about their mapping overlay, for evaluating parcels, from conservation point of view. So I've asked, as we discussed last time, FinCom, Planning Board, Select Board, CPC, Sustainability, if they were interested in general hearing this. FinCon got back and said they'd be interested in hearing it, so.
Perfect.
Could you make that Monday night?
Yeah, I could make that Monday night. Thank you for putting this together.
Yeah, it's not together yet, but we're getting there.
We're
What
getting
time-
there.
What time are we thinking, Amy?
I said 6:30, I just had to reserve the room. I could make it later if that's better for people.
It would be for me, but don't change things around just based on me.
Would 7 be better, or is that still not doing you any good?
Would be much better.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Nothing's even close to set in stone. Okay.
Okay, let's go ahead. We'll table some of the other conversations. 8 o'clock, public hearing, notice of intent, seasonal dock installation, parks, recreation, and community education. There's not quite yet a mass DEP number yet. Installation of 3 seasonal docks for boating, swimming, and fishing.
Well, I don't see Tim here.
Before he jumps in, or now we have a new founded dock policy. Is this something that they're going to get roped into as well?
And they're filing for it.
Perfect.
But yeah, so
Want to make sure that they're aware now. That's all.
Tim is with no, that's Tim.
no, it's the wrong Tim.
Wrong Tim. Right. Okay.
And I
Well,
don't have his cell phone number, so
Is he here for the 8:15 one as well? Is that?
yes.
Is he just maybe he's shooting for 8:15 instead of 8?
Could be.
Well, but-
And
the hearing is open, so why don't we go ahead and at least look at the documents that Tim has filed with us for the land use permit that Amy furnished for us, the period use date from summer 2024 to 2027. I didn't see on the next page, I didn't see the attached map, but I'm sure someone's seen it. My only kind of question on some of these land use permits where we give these long-term dates, which we've done before, that just roll over automatically, that I'd like to add into the kind of the boilerplate message that they do advance provided no changes occur, because we wouldn't really know if there's a change, like an addition or subtraction to the permit.
This isn't a land use permit. This is a full notice of intent, right?
there were 3, there was a land use request, because the fishing pier would be on conservation property. And then there's also the 2 notice of intents. So the land use request was up in the administrative discussion.
Yep. Okay.
Do you feel comfortable doing the land use permit, or you want to wait and hear what Tim has to say? Yep, he
We
says
talked about that
he
the
just
last
got
meeting.
home. Tim just got home and he's getting on. So he should be here momentarily.
While we're waiting, Amy, do you want to go back to administrative discussions and talk about conservation restrictions?
Yeah, so just a quick update. We got comments back from the state on the Williams CR over a year later. And I've been through those, and town council is going to check some things that I wasn't sure of. Then I think Williams will probably be ready to vote on. And then I've been working with Kathy Stevens from the trust on Jones Meadow. So they own Jones Meadow, and you all be holding the CR on that. And that, because it had just been taking so long, I actually had to redo it for their current template. So that is also almost ready to go and is down at town council for them to take a second look at. Actually, no, town council already looked at it and it's ready to submit to EEA. Then we can wait for a year or so. And that would, I think, bring us up to date, except for, I don't know, Church Meadows, whatever's going on over there.
So a conservation restriction permanently prevents development? Is that how it works?
Whatever it is set up to. So there, I don't know, 20, 30 pages. It'll say what the permitted uses are and what the prohibited things are. So if most commonly, you allow for trails and kiosks and that sort of stuff. And if you want to build a parking lot, you kind of have to carve that out ahead of time. So it tries to address a lot of different things, thinking way ahead in perpetuity, so that they get kind of convoluted.
And it's not able to be removed after it's in place?
Literally like an act of Congress.
Right. Just looking to make sure that we protect, especially like the Williams property and any of the others we put it on. So wouldn't want someone down the road to say, that'd be a great place to put an office building or, whatever.
Yeah. And the way that the town vote was on Williams, it was, care and custody, the conservation for conservation purposes.
Okay.
And it did not require a conservation restriction because CPC funds weren't used. And Jones Meadow, the same thing. It didn't necessarily require a CR, but the trust wants one.
Yeah. I know the Williams property, at some point, they're going to be putting houses around it. And so we want to make sure it's protected.
Yeah.
And CRs, Ed, can be just a sliver of land or big, so that each one is so unique. And that's why I think sometimes it takes so long to get these approved.
Sure. And are they approved by the state legislature or just the Department of DEP?
It's by the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs and Energy, the Department of Conservation Services. So the Secretary of EEA signs off on it.
Well,
As will the select board, as will you guys. So
yeah. Well, once you get the state involved, that takes forever.
And Andrew, do you want to talk about Frog Pond?
Yeah, so I'm just going to touch on that briefly for tonight, but we did go out and do a site walk last Wednesday after work, and we did notice quite a few invasives all around the pond. There has been quite a bit of work in recent years, chipping away at the invasives. But so there will be an event on April 20th. I'm jumping ahead of myself here, on Earth Day. And Tess could even probably give you guys an overview of what the Long Lake Neighborhood Association is planning. But I was just thinking down the road, we could even use CPA funds to really clean that site up and get rid of the invasives and maybe restore the walkway. The walkway was a mess. It's like somebody's going to break their leg on it walking through there. Like it's really bad. And once highway dredges it out, the pond itself, we could get that place up to really good shape the way it was 20 years ago. So it's just something to think about, for future meetings, maybe using CPA funding or other grants to really get that place in good form and to kind of keep it in good shape moving forward. But here's Tim.
Right.
Hello.
Sorry about the delay, guys.
No, that's okay. Good evening, Tim. So we have 3 things to discuss. So we've got your land use request, but then right now we have the open hearing, which is your notice of intent for the seasonal dock installation. And it's installation of 3 seasonal docks for boating, swimming, and fishing. So let's start with that one first, and then we'll move on to the 8:15. And if we have time in between, we'll do the land use permit.
Sounds great.
Super. So do you want to just tell the commission ideally what you're looking for?
Yeah, so traditionally for the seasonal docks, that was something that we would go to the select board for, as it was written, due to the fact that we're supposed to have our harbor master approve those things, which we don't have. This year, Amy had given me the paperwork to file for the docks as we normally do. The two docks are existing. So the one is the sailing dock, which is at the end of the boat ramp, and the other one traditionally runs down the center of the swim zones, which divides them into two parts, one for public beach, one for Camp Tehadawon when we're down there, which we also open up to the public when Camp T is not there. The third dock that we had put in a permit for was to create the fishing dock that we've had conversation about since pre-COVID. We did put one in there during COVID in order to spread people out. It was pretty well received. And as I presented in the last meeting, there were two wooden structures that used to be there that have collapsed. One has been removed. The other one has not. So the third one was just a kind to replace those two docks, as well as continue on with what we had started doing at COVID for that access point right there in front of the bench.
Commissioners, questions for Tim? Sometimes it takes a minute, Tim, because everybody's muted.
All good.
I'm fine with what he just described.
Same.
And this is an example, except for the fishing pier, which is a fishing dock, which is new, of basically getting someone in compliance with the Wetlands Protection Act, not the Chapter 91 side of things.
Okay. Well, if there's no further discussion, do we have someone? Well, so Tim, here's where we're at. We cannot officially close tonight because Mass DEP hasn't given you the number yet, which is very common.
Yeah.
Oh, but you know that based on what you're hearing, you'd have support unless something changes. So what we would do is we would continue to May 14th, which is the next meeting. And if everything stays the same, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in. We're just waiting for that number.
Yeah,
But-
and traditionally
and you
we try to
probably-
get them in before Memorial Day, so we have time.
Okay. Okay. So with that, let's go ahead because the next one is not till 8:15, so we're a little shy of that. So
You did
let's-
have one hand raised, Sarah.
Okay. I didn't see that.
Tim, there you go.
Hi, yes, Tim Ahern. I'm a butter to the beach, and I just had a question. So,
Okay, Tim, thank you for being here. Can you please state your address, please?
sure, it's 3 Lakeview Drive.
Super,
Road.
thank you.
So, just one question for clarification. The current boat dock sometimes has fishermen on it, and there's a little bit of rambunctious mayhem on there where they're jumping on the boats and whatever. Are they going to be directed to the fishing dock in the future, if that's approved?
Yeah, so that's going to be our hope, is to direct all of that traffic to the fishing, quote unquote, fishing dock, in order to allow safer access for the people who are launching boats off of the boat ramp, and to hopefully not get as many hooks and everything snagged in the sailing gear as we currently experience. So
Right.
yes, that it was a very minor part of the initial discussion, but the hope would be that we could direct all fishing traffic over to that new area.
Thanks, Tim. That sounds great.
Okay. Doesn't look like we have any other further discussion with that. So let's jump back to what was an administrative discussion, which was a land use permit for seasonal fishing dock. Dock will allow for access to open water away from vegetation for fishing and non-motorized boat launching. It is proposed to have a period of use from summer 2024 through 2027. And you all were furnished with this in your packets. Any discussion on that? As I had said, the only thing I'd like to change is the language on all land use permits, that whatever the period of time that it's being issued for, that there be a disclaimer that that's fine, provided no changes occur to the use. Does anybody have any questions about Park and Recs and Community Education's application for land use permit? So this is separate. This is to use the parks in town.
Is it for the parks, Amy, or is this because
Yeah, no, this was
the
because,
dock is going on a
Right.
conservation part? So
Right.
that Lakeshore Drive area that we're asking to utilize is officially a conservation parcel.
No, I think Tim clarified any questions I had at our last meeting. So I'm comfortable with this.
If that's the case, would someone like to make a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion that we issue a land use permit to the Park and Rec Department for the installation of their seasonal fishing pier on our conservation land. At Long Lake.
Second. All right, roll call vote. Ed,
Foltz, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
Carl,
Tom Alberg, aye.
and myself, I. It's unanimous.
Okay, so now it's
Thank you,
8:16.
everyone.
Yep, it's 8:16, so we're gonna go ahead and jump to the 8:15 public hearing, abbreviated notice of intent, beach path, parks and recreation and education, community education. Mass DEP number is not given, and they're asking for maintenance of existing porous paver trail and extension across the beach. Tim, if you want to go ahead and just kind of give the commission a brief overview of that, that would be great.
Yes, so we currently utilize a temporary walking path that we put down in the summer. Most of you hopefully have seen it. It's the blue mat. I had presented last week. That traverses about 76 feet worth of path from the parking lot to where the Concom path ends, coming up off of Lakeshore Drive. The original reason that we had done this is an equity issue was brought to us back when I had first started, and it was a gentleman who was in a wheelchair, and he discussed how he had to go up and around, all the way up Beach, down Goldsmith, and downtown to access the parking lot. Since then, we've had a couple other residents come to our last park commission meeting and express concern that they can't traverse the beach during the times that the mat is not there as well. Their names are Deb and Dorcas. They're part of the Long Lake Neighborhood Association. So we did dive back into the conversation about extending the path. Currently, there is a path that comes up from Lakeshore Drive on the conservation parcel that when we did do our study, that was also found to be out of compliance because of the grade that it's on. So when it says maintenance and new, the hope would be that we were going to replace the 33, 37 feet of conservation path on the parcel to bring it into compliance, and then extend the pathway the rest of the way from where the conservation piece ends and across the beach to the parking lot. So that work would be done once again as soon as possible, once we get DEP permit, conservation approval, and everything else that goes into making that happen. The path would be made in compliance with all of the necessities that were put forth for proper drainage and everything else. And our hope is actually that by putting in a hard path instead of the temporary pathway that we have, we're actually going to address some of the washout issues that we've been having with the severe weather that we've seen in the past 2 or 3 summers. That area traditionally has a lot of washout. There was, when it was first built, a swale that was built behind the playground, which has since kind of eroded a little bit. We are also looking at how can we fix that. But we're hoping that by the substrate that we put underneath of the pathway, as well as the pathway itself, it'll help us to mitigate some of the runoff that we've been seeing in the past few years as well.
Okay, great. Questions for Tim? Comments?
Sounds like a great way to provide your year-round access to the lake.
I
Okay, so
agree.
Tim, I guess we'll wait and see when you have your DEP number. Sometimes you would hear prior than before Amy. So as soon as you do hear, and it doesn't hurt to give them a call every now and then too, to see. But we will go ahead and carry both discussions forward to May 14th.
And waivers were provided for both of those projects too.
So maybe in the next listing for the public hearing, we make reference of that, or no? Do you need to put that in the agenda with waivers?
Of what?
Waiver?
Oh,
Okay. All right. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, again, sorry for being tardy. Thank you guys for your time and appreciate working together.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay.
Thank you,
Take care.
Tim.
Have a good
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.
Thank
You
you.
too.
right.
Great.
And actually, I was going to say, if you want reference to waivers put into the agenda for everything that's asking for a waiver, that can certainly be done.
I didn't know if,
Just haven't, I never have, but might not be a bad way of advertising that people need waivers.
what do we think about that?
I kind of like it. So public hearing, give a description, waiver of the local wetland bylaw requested, or something along those
Something,
lines.
Yeah, it'd be easy enough for me to make Tim do that.
Say notice of intent with waiver, right? It's adding 2 extra words. It shouldn't be.
Oh God, I guarantee it's gonna be more than 2 extra words, but yeah, exactly. Once we get it in there, it's fine.
We're going to be going to 3 pages on our agenda.
It won't be the first time.
Right. One thing I don't know if people noticed, so Healy Corner later this evening has postponed and then we know that Taylor withdrew. But to take a second, so we're at some point with Healy, we'll have to determine if it's going to be, they'll tell us if it's going to be a new filing where so much time has passed as well. So we'll talk about that the next time they come in. Amy, anything to add to that?
No, I will just, when it really, honest to God, looks like they are gonna come in because they've continued for a long time. I will double check with town council about what their recommendation is for
Yeah, that was how we left it.
a new filing or just new notifications. Because we
Carly,
didn't have quorum.
you were on with Healy though, from start to finish.
Yep, I was, but I brought that up with Amy at the last meeting.
Yeah.
At this point, what's going on? Because it's probably just me and you, right, Sarah? Or I guess Andrew as well, but
Some people had missed, so
yeah, right. If they've
quorum's
missed,
not there anymore.
right, exactly.
Oh, I make a bet I missed too. So, yeah.
Let's get Anna back in here. She's still an associate, right?
No, she's not.
Oh, she's not even an associate.
No. Nor is Julie.
I was at quite a few of those meetings and the sidewalks.
No. Yeah.
But they went on for a long time, so it was easy to miss.
Yeah, I'm sure I missed.
I mean, at this point, I think it doesn't matter who was on it. Personally, I don't think it matters who was on it if you had missed meetings or not. It's been way too long. The project has to have changed substantially from where we last stood because it wasn't moving forward through us. When they laid it in front of us, right? So,
yeah.
Personally, I think it's a whole new filing, but we'll see what they have to say.
Did that filing all come down to the one lot in the back?
Lots in the back.
Yeah, there's 2, but it was the crossing that, yeah.
That was basically what the project came down to. Not necessarily not necessarily the lots in the front.
As I recall, y'all were pretty much just starting that discussion.
Yeah.
Seriously. When they stopped because they got the appeal under the planning board.
Is the appeal over?
That's why this is going in fits and starts. It seems like it's almost over, but then it's not. And they come to agreement, then they haven't. So I'm just asking Bruce, yes or no.
Okay. So I guess we would always request that they are the last one on every agenda.
That's why I've been putting them there. Bruce knows it.
Okay, just we've got 5 minutes. So Orchard update, we have a meeting this Thursday. to go through an outline presentation for town meeting. Basically where we're at is that there's a motion to sell just the APR land as APR. It has to be voted by the Board of Selectmen, from what I understand, so to be termed surplus inventory. We are still having to create an RFP. So we did the RFI. We had some good applicants in the RFI, you may remember, was just to kind of see who might be interested and what their thoughts were and what they might want to do. And so there are people that are probably interested that never did the RFI that would then go to the RFP, but we have to come up with the criteria based on what we're hearing through the town and what might be good for the orchard of how you tick the box. So if, say, Kyle wants to put an RFP in and he doesn't have enough ag experience, that's not going to get him to be able to tick off all the boxes. So that criteria is still in discussion. So we're still slogging through it. But there is a pretty robust link on the town website that has all the meetings, all the minutes, a lot of the data. Landvest's report is there. Maps are there as well. So it's been a little difficult because, you know, we've done this for over 3 years. And while it's nice to have, you know, town interest now, people want to understand where we were 3 years ago. And we're just really trying to keep the ball moving. We know we've lost this whole growing season. And I think what the projected forecast now is to hopefully have somebody in next winter, at latest next spring. So basically we've set the budget to keep mowing. Invasives are robust in there. And so I don't know that there's a budget right now to try and address the invasives. And I tell everyone that every minute that ticks by, the place falls into further disarray in terms of the structures. So.
Was it ever, I know you've been at this for 3 years, was there ever any discussion just to keep it with the town and let it remove the buildings? And
so what would happen, Carl, you could do that on all the land except for the APR. So APR under the restriction has to be, at least 50% of it has to be actively used for agriculture. If not, they would take it back and we would lose all control of that. And they have the power to take it back and put in whoever they want, or they can sell it. And that's MDR. So, and we've been working with them because we're really, you only have kind of a grace period of 2, sometimes 3 years. They don't want to take the property back. They've already taken some back in the Commonwealth. So they're working with us. They know that we're, as I said, slogging along, trying to find someone.
so they wouldn't, even if the town expressed interest to keep in some type of conservation or keep it,
No. Yep.
they wouldn't even entertain that idea. They would take the property back even if the town.
Absolutely. Yep. So the APR, which is a really interesting restriction to read, it's very concrete. And that's on that website, or I can send it to you again. It really spells out what you can do as well for ag as well. And through the decades, that document has really modified. Like they won't let you go put a house up. So it's very, very, very restrictive.
Could it just be put into some type of grass? As
long as someone is going to hay it.
Pay it, yeah.
Well,
Yep.
why wouldn't the town want to do something like that? Something as easy as we possibly can to keep the.
Well, it's a great question, but you'd have the expense of taking out all the trees and you'd have to stump all the trees in order to get hay. So that would be expensive for sure. And we looked at what the town, potentially what the cost would be to remove trees, and the town doesn't have the money to remove the trees.
It just, I don't know, in my mind, it seems like there's other alternatives. If it's not gonna break the bank to do something like that, and it keeps land that the town's already basically purchased
Right.
in the town coffers. I mean, that's all that makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, and I agree, but
I
there's
disagree with.
there's no money to even maintain it. They haven't maintained the buildings, they haven't maintained the land.
I would just I personally, if it was the town, I'd take all the buildings down and be done with them. Just like, I mean, we do that on federal refuges all the time. If we acquire a piece of land, we don't
Right.
want the buildings. The first thing we do is remove the buildings and
Yeah.
get rid of it.
Yep, I agree, but for the land that's APR, which is where all the trees are, we have to farm it. If not, we will lose control of it.
I still think there's a way to do it and keep the land as low agriculture as you possibly can. And it would also be good for grassland nesting birds.
Sure.
I mean,
I agree with you with that part.
APR doesn't care though.
Nope. Yeah.
but you're growing grass, which they do care.
Well, yes, but you have to harvest it and you have
Has
to
to be
show it and make
agricultural.
money. Has to be agriculture.
So it's gonna have to be fertilized and seeded and
Oh.
all the yearly stuff.
Okay.
All right, eight
Once it's
32.
out,
Let's
you
go
lose-
ahead and go to continued public hearing. Oh, I've got a stink bug flying around my head. Notice of intent, Cloverdale ADA Trail. Mass DEP
DEP number.
to be determined. Construction of a gravel ADA trail and modifications to boardwalk.
So unless you have any other questions, I would ask for continuance to the next May 14th.
No questions from me.
I'm still checking my email to see if we get a late number, but they haven't come in yet.
How long are they running in your experience, Amy?
Who was submitted before me? Oh, 95 Taylor, which has been withdrawn. They still don't have a DEP number, and DEP didn't know they was withdrawing. So that was February 27th that they got it. So they're really out.
So like 6 weeks out.
Yeah, but I think 95, they did ask some questions about 95 Taylor in the riverfront area, so they were looking at it, but
Okay.
anyway, that's for the next one, I guess.
One thing, because of dates had changed on meetings, I just want everyone to remember that our 2 meetings in May are the 14th and the 28th. And we also have town meeting thrown in there as well. So, but the only site walk we have planned right now would be May 8th. Amy, can we put in for a reminder like that Monday, or we'll see everybody, well, hopefully see everyone at town meeting.
Well, you may possibly need a special meeting at town meeting, before town meeting, if there's anything going on with Webster.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because CPC is actually going to be meeting on the 6th, that Monday. So in order to have the application actually considered by CPC for that, we would have to meet prior to actually vote to submit the application to CPC, and then CPC would have to vote to approve that, and then it would go before town meeting. So we would technically have to meet before May 6th if
So
something does.
So
Concom is
let's be,
submitting that?
who's submitting that? And are you referring to CPC having to meet, or conservation having to meet, or both?
So both would have to meet depending on who's submitting the application. If it's the select board submitting the application to CPC, they could technically do that and then CPC would vote. But if it's us submitting the application, we would have to meet. But yeah, it depends on how the board
Yeah,
wants.
we're not submitting it.
Well, you've already got an application when it was the 1.6 million from the fall.
Mhm.
So we could probably just recycle that with a new number. I'm hoping. Somebody could recycle that with a new number.
Right, but we never took a vote that we were going to submit it. That's the selectmen submitting that.
Sure they know that, but
Yeah, I don't. We would have to have an official vote of this committee if we are going to do that again.
Yeah.
Yeah, this board would have to vote on that for sure.
Right. And we do not meet until after town meeting.
Are you saying vote to support that warrant? Is that what you're saying?
Vote to be the one that submits it.
Or-
Yeah,
One vote to submit the CPC application and probably, well, at the same time, probably, or different vote to support the purchase.
Right. So that would have to be a whole other meeting in itself, and you need 3 days minimum to get that posted, and you'd have to make sure you have quorum.
Not to sound cynical, but is this even really gonna happen, or are we just going through an exercise again? Has he come down in price? Has the appraisal come up in value? If
That's why
not,
we're waiting for the appraisal.
setting
to
up
be made
meetings
first.
seems like premature.
Yeah, it's
Or
a great
even worrying
question.
about
and
setting them up.
Yeah, great question. I think everything really, stems on that appraisal, which is not in yet.
It's due May 1st.
Whew.
That leaves a lot of room, doesn't it?
I-
And I'll
3
be out
days
of
in
country,
advance of a
so-
May 6th meeting means May 3rd, and it's coming in on May 1st.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So Andrew, you'll keep us posted on that. It is 8:36. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Can I just
Oh,
mention one more thing? Because Carl brought this up separately earlier about getting that parcel over at the orchard actually transferred into the care and custody of Concom.
Yep.
The select board voted that they would do that, which means getting a subdivision, and you know, I haven't pushed them, and they never did it. That is probably a $2,000 or $3,000 cost to get the subdivision for that. So I don't know. Right now, I don't have the money for that. After July 1st, I might. And I don't know if the CPC, I don't want to call it a slush fund, but the open space purchase fund, or whatever you want to call it. And you can think about this, Andrew, if CPC would think that'd be appropriate use of some of that money.
So, I mean, potentially, because it is protecting and preserving the land,
Right.
but it's already municipally owned, so it gets a little funky, but we could certainly.
It's about as municipally owned as the 50-something acres that's being sold.
Yeah, so I mean,
That's how I looked at it. So I'd rather see it in Concom hands.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we could put together a pretty convincing case that it needs to be subdivided, and there are fees that go along with it in order to fully protect it under Concom. So yeah, I can certainly look under that.
So
umbrella.
Amy, that fee is just for the engineering, correct? I mean,
That's for that. I just,
surveying.
I don't know, 6-9 months ago, I asked Ross
Yeah.
what they thought it might be.
Yep.
Um,
And we
So-
have to remember that Ross is so out that it would be, even though we don't have the money, I don't think they'd even have it done by July. So we could kind of like keep that ball rolling to make a motion that when we do have the money, but to tell Ross, we're going to have the money, go ahead and put it on your to-do list. Let's-
I'm not gonna be able to do anything with them officially until after July 1st.
Okay.
Town administrators, no one's gonna let me.
No, I know, but you could have a motion to support that, so you could already have that. So when you have the funds, you don't have to come back and wait for another meeting. Does that make sense? We would be pre-approving in the next fiscal year.
I would wait. I don't think an extra month is gonna make a difference.
Yeah, I'd probably hold on to.
I don't-
Okay.
Just.
It just
Yeah.
Ross is gonna, they told me they would honor that price.
Okay.
And I'd probably need to go ask some other people just in case anyway, but,
Okay.
But as
and we
soon as
just run the line right down the stone wall probably.
Right.
As soon as we can do something, though, we need to. Lately, I just think of sell, it seems like, or build. So we need to do more protecting and faster.
Yep. Okay, does anyone have anything else? Motion to adjourn at 8:40?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Roll call vote. Ed,
Ed Foltz, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Carl,
Tom Albert, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
myself, I. We are adjourned.